Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we're visiting with mother and author Vicki Reccasina-Malloy, who has chronicled her journey of grief after losing her son in her new book, Hearts of Light and a Mother's Vision of Love. There's an inherent bond between the bravery it takes to speak out from such a core experience and the ability to process your own journey in the face of grief. We're blessed that Vicki is here to share her story. Vicki, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself to our guests.
Hi, so I'm Vicki Reccasina-Malloy, and I lost my son, Justin, on a Sunday, June 30th, 2019. We received a call while we were out of town for the day from my daughter that he may have passed away. It wasn't clear yet. We were shopping and I noticed that my husband was on his cell phone and his voice became very agitated. And his body just stiffened up and looked like he was about to collapse. And I ran over and said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Kelly's on the phone and Justin's friend called and something happened with him. We're not exactly sure." So we ran to the car, drove home. On the way home, we got in touch with the emergency room doctor who did confirm that our son had died from drowning. It was an experience like nothing I ever had. I felt like someone had cut my grounding cord and I was free falling through space in a state of utter despair and confusion. It was so unexpected, so shocking. When we returned home, family and friends already descended upon our home and gathered around us. And for the next few hours, we just sat together in my living room. And I just started telling stories about Justin and his life.
You know, it's okay. I know this is really, really difficult. And you're recalling moments right when the major trauma began. But his life was filled with so much joy. And he was, if everything I've heard is that this was just so out, it would never expected of him. He was going to be that joyful son eternal.
Yeah, I know. That was his spirit. And it was a big spirit. He had a presence to him. So while I was reminiscing, you're in a state of shock and these things are coming out. And I started remembering the story he told me when he was 10 years old. We're a family that practices transcendental meditation, and my son was meditating. And when he was done with his meditation, he said, "Mom, I had a really interesting experience that I need to tell you." So I ran and got a pen and paper because I had a feeling something big he was going to say. So he said he suddenly found himself coming out of a pool of water, and he felt this cool breeze washing over him in this cave-like environment. Then he said, this beautiful lady appeared to him. She looked like a divine goddess. Now, we never spoke of divine goddesses. He probably saw pictures in my house, but we never spoke about this. He said she had stars all around her, and in her deep sky blue eyes were also stars. He said she seemed to be a part of everything. Her complexion was paper smooth, and she had gemstones decorating her head. Her necklaces were all beautiful stones. He said the beautiful woman said to him, "Go to the light." He then traveled through a tunnel and came out onto the other side. And when he came out to the other side, he came out into this brilliant light, and he was surrounded by all these divine beings. I said to him, "Who's the lady telling you to go to the light? Who is this person, this being?" He says, "Oh, Mom, it's the lady in the watercolor that you have framed in your meditation room." So I went to look at this little painting. And he said, I looked at it and I said, oh, that's Divine Mother in the Indian tradition, Saraswati. Now, in the Indian tradition, there are several versions of divine goddesses. Saraswati was the divine goddess of knowledge. It dawned on me that day, with family surrounding us, me and my husband, that he was being prepared for 21 years into the future on the day that he was going to drown and pass away. Back then, I was not familiar with the term go to the light. Just wasn't something I had heard. I don't think it was a real popular term 21 years ago. But now it was revealed to me what he was experiencing. I realized that he was going to suddenly drown when he was 31. And this divine being was giving him the knowledge that he needed to help him on his journey into the afterlife. Dying very suddenly, I believe, can be very confusing for the soul. So she planted in his awareness the knowledge to go to the light at the appropriate time when that would come.
Well, we're going to take a brief break. We're going to continue our conversation with you when we come back and learn about this loving relationship between meditation, this premonition, and your grieving process as it began on that fateful day. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Vicki Reccasina-Malloy about her son, her love, and her loss as she travels on a journey of grief and realization. Vicki, continue the story.
I realized, like a caring mother, this divine goddess was looking out for her child at a time when I couldn't. My niece was 11 years old at the time. She was sitting next to me, listening to all these stories that I was telling and people were talking about. And it was, it was really special. And she's writing away in her notebook. And she said to me, "Oh, Aunt Vicki, I just wrote a poem to Cousin Justin. Can I read it to the group?" So I said, "Of course." So here's her poem. This is an 11-year-old girl, mind you. From my cousin Justin. He is still sprouting like a grain of wheat. Very soon you will all meet. I try to see him in the clouds, but he is always here right now. He wishes you to see him from the bottom of his heart, but please believe he is here, never apart. And remember when he was 8, you know that his visions were very great. Think of his traits, nice and kind, and also very strong in the mind. Impressive, he was blazing like a flame. Everyone now will remember his name. Love, your cousin Mira.
That's really beautiful.
She's a very empathic young woman. And now that she's 15, and it was just amazing to see this young girl just feeling the whole experience in the room and all the love and what came to her through that.
Well, in your family, from what I know, you have this powerful sort of connections with people and compassion and love. And what is it that stimulated you to do the book? And what did you feel you could accomplish with the book that would take you further than where you were going without it?
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't planning on writing a book. it was an accident or predetermined, and I just had no clue. The last conversation I had with my son was the day before he died. We ended the conversation on, I'm going to come out. Family's going to come out in 6 months. We're going to celebrate Christmas at your new place in Sacramento. The next morning, I texted him just to say hi. I wanted to talk with him some more that day. He says, we'll talk later on in the day. Well, later on in the day, I find out that my son has died. I didn't know what to do. I just needed to hold on to something. So I thought, let me just continue in the same vein of where we left off. I'll just text him. So I did that for about a week. And then after that, I thought I should start writing this in a journal. And over time, there was just something that just started to evolve. There was this feeling of intense love, intense grief, and intense gratitude. I'm like, wow. I think the love just that I had for him as a mother, as any mother has for their child, it just transcended with him into the next world. So it was elevated because he was elevated, and my love just traveled there with him. So over the next 3 years, I just would, every day, I was compelled. I couldn't stop writing. Poems would come to me. Songs would come to me in my sleep that would have a word or a phrase that would just stimulate some creativity. And I felt like something was being said here, and perhaps it's something that other parents or even people that have lost a loved one could connect with in some way. And people that don't have any experiences, maybe it can give them some hope. I'm a strong believer in God and the afterlife and the beautiful realms of heaven and how beautiful our world is. So I'm just one of those people that, is just a happy person, and I believe in beauty and love. So
And it was a big step. It was a big step to get there because it was, traumatic. You had to go to California. You had to deal with all of these, I don't know, not very fun things to do. That's for sure.
Yeah. So the next morning, we couldn't get a flight out that night. So the next morning we were able to get a flight to Chicago. A friend flew us out on his private jet. So I'm like, okay, we're getting halfway there. We cried the whole way over. It was horrible. It was the worst trip of my life. We finally get to Sacramento. The first thing, we just immediately bolt to the hospital to meet with the ER doctor. She was a lovely woman. And I just felt so bad for her that she had this job that she had to tell parents that their young son had just died. Here she is handing me his blue sapphire ring that he never took off his finger in a plastic bag. She said, we're not going to be able to, have his body ready for you to see, for a couple of days. So I just said to her, well, was there any foul play involved? And she said, no. But we did find out months later when we got the full report that he had an enlarged heart. And a cardiologist that my husband spoke to said he probably had dysrhythmia of the heart. And being in his pool was the perfect storm for drowning because he passed out.
We're going to take a short break. And, when we come back, we'll continue to have Vicki share her reflections on her connections to the people and the events around her and how she was able to maintain her center throughout this whole thing. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time. which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Vicki, author of Hearts of Light and A Mother's Vision of Love. Vicki?
So we finally get to my son's house. And when we got there, the first thing I recognized is this wide avenue that he lives on that was coming to me in a vision years earlier. In the vision, there was an ambulance with the lights flashing. No idea what it meant. No knowledge came with that. Just it was a sunny day, someplace, somewhere, USA. And there was obviously something pressing going on, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't feel any grief or sadness. I was just silently watching this take place. Having that experience made me realize that this was something that was destined to be. And there are these internal nudging and proddings that you're given from a higher source that helps you during those times of shock and trauma. We then sat around his pool. We each took turns throwing a yellow rose into the water where he had drowned. He had about 10 of his friends were there, and we all wished him a beautiful journey. Something starts nudging me on the back of my head. There's this tapping. And, I don't know what's going on, like who's tapping me. And it keeps on going. And I finally just closed my eyes. And when I closed my eyes, I just went into this space. And my son was there. And he kept on saying over and over, "Mom, I love you. I love you so much, Mom. I love you, Mom." And it continued until I opened my eyes. And then I didn't hear him anymore.
That is powerful. There's a thread of deep significance to meditation, prayer, and connections to other people.
Yeah.
Did that change at all? How did that change or transform itself from before this happened to then?
It's like life has just become this transcendental experience. Everything goes deeper. I feel more of everything of life. It's like the love I have for my son just burst out to love for humanity, and the feelings that I feel for other people of loss that they are experiencing. Everything is deeply felt. I can't get away with it anymore. I just can't block things out and say, no. I have to feel it and bless it and love it. Meditation has been, huge for me. I've been practicing for 48 years. And, that daily experience of just going to that very deep, silent reservoir that exists within has definitely laid a very firm foundation for me to deal with the trauma of this experience, because it is very traumatic. I wouldn't have been able to do this interview 2.5 years ago. Now it's 3.5 years, and I feel like something has shifted. I'll never get over his death, but I'm definitely getting through it. And I really feel that meditation has helped considerably. Also surrounding myself with my loved ones, sleeping, getting good rest, eating balanced meals, exercising, surrounding myself with good books, uplifting movies. They all help and fill the void. Also honoring him. We have this beautiful memorial for him on the trail by our home. I got a tattoo on my arm with his name, Jay and Justin. Jay was his nickname. Planting trees in his name, in his honor. All that it fills something. It's important to honor them, and they feel it, and they send that love right back to you. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind because I have felt that. So it's been a beautiful experience. I mean, it's sad as heck, but it's also so beautiful. There's these different emotions, that come with the loss of a child.
Well, we're going to take a short break, Vicki. When we'll come back, as I want to continue on this thread because it's so powerful, that message you share. And we're going to ask you share some final comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You all don't want to miss this.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about a journey of grief and realization with the author of Hearts of Light and the Mother's Vision of Love. Let's see what insights, advice, and inspiration Vicki has to share with us. Vicki?
Writing this book, it's really a journal. It's a chronicle of love letters of my life with my son and how I needed, for my own well-being, to put under the microscope of my awareness my love for him, our relationship, my relationship with the world, with God, with the universe, with the afterlife. So this chronicle of love letters, it began with just some stories of his childhood toys and his teen years and places that we went to when they were children, water parks and going to the beach and being with family, and his relationships, his friendships, and how he grew in every stage of his life. There was just such a beautiful growth. He always came out, just to be, a better person, a more mature person, more intelligent person. We were really proud of him. He was a loving and respectful son, and that was really important to us, that it warmed our heart that he was just such a good child and adult. Something I want to tell people that read this book: you don't have to have lost a son or a daughter to read this and relate to it. It's really a book about how to love your child when they're alive as well. And that's very important. So if they do, whether they leave before you or after you, you feel complete. You feel like you've had this beautiful relationship, and that's very powerful.
That may be a very powerful message for these times when people are lost in computers, cell phones, and they forget the moments, they forget the quality time together, and that the legacy of a person's life is not their passing, it's all those moments lived while they were here.
Yeah. So putting all those moments, just under the microscope of my awareness, it just led me to write and write and write every day, and with new revelations, coming through every day. But I would tell parents, when you lose someone that you love, or anyone, when you lose someone that you love, you've got to give yourself that space to grieve. Don't rush it. There's no timeline. It will take as long as it takes, but the only caution, don't get too stuck in that slump of grief, because it's a bottomless pit that you can never pull yourself out of if you don't have the wherewithal to do that. And having people around you that are really supportive is very important, and very nourishing, And, if you need therapy, go get therapy. If you want to write. My husband started doing all these DIYs around the house. We had my son's, the lid to his coffin, because he was cremated, so they didn't use the lid. My husband made a beautiful coffee table out of that. So that was his way, one of his ways of honoring, my son. Keep busy. It's important to keep yourself busy, but also you need that quiet time for reflection.
Well, and you're so strong right now, but you have had some years to process.
Oh, yeah. I still have moments. I definitely have moments.
Now, I do know that there's a very, very special poem you'd like to share with us. Would you do that, please?
Sure. It's called Into the Self. Dear Jay, April 11th, 2020. I stop and stare into a memory of you as you move through my awareness. Life comes and goes as I listen for your gentle voice. There is a delicate wall between us. We are on opposite sides of this subtle wall, but the golden thread of our love keeps us connected. This is my lifeline to you. As the great facade melts away, I close my eyes, falling in from the outside, effortlessly going inward, pulling back to the self to find you here with me. My loving son, you remain with me through it all. I come back to the place where you are. Your radiance resides deep within the golden chambers of my heart, and I am home. I love you, Mom.
Thank you so very much for sharing today, Vicki. It's very brave of you, and we appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.